The royal rift between Prince Harry and King Charles III appears far from over, as fresh reports suggest the Duke's hopes of staying at Sandringham House this summer have quietly been shut down.
The Sandringham ban is the announcement. What Charles decided in the same week, quietly, without a press briefing, is the part nobody is reporting yet. Within hours of leaving a children's cancer ward in Melbourne, the outfit Meghan wore inside that ward was listed for purchase online. Dress, earrings, shoes, the complete look, worn among seriously ill children, available to buy before the visit was even out of the news cycle. Harry, who campaigns publicly against bullying, is described by sources directly inside the palace as exactly that. Someone who uses his own children, Archie and Lilibet, as emotional leverage against a dying father. The Australian taxpayer bill for that trip. $410,000 for two private citizens with no official royal position. 80% of Australians polled afterward said they should not come back. Charles saw all of it. Then he made a call. Most coverage of this story is calling it a family argument. What that framing misses is the specific institutional mechanism now sitting in front of Charles and who built it. This is not a story about a family falling out. It is a story about the moment a king finally ran out. Oh, this is not a story about a father and a son. It is a story about whether the monarchy can afford to keep absorbing Harry's decisions, and who inside the institution is already counting the cost. The people who follow institutional power carefully already know that what Charles does in the next 30 days matters more to the monarchy's next 50 years than anything Harry has done in the last 5. Reasons to keep protecting someone who had stopped protecting him. 4 days before his father, a king undergoing active cancer treatment, flew to Washington, D.C. to sit across from the American president, Harry stood in Kiev and delivered a political speech attacking that same president. Charles had paused his cancer treatment to make that trip. The Sandringham ban is the announcement. What Charles decided in the same week, quietly, without a press briefing, is the part nobody is reporting yet. Subscribe, because the mechanism already in place is what changes everything about what happens to Harry's title. And it did not come from Charles.
His own brother and his own sister-in-law find that the way William has played this is strategic with a really strong hit of Ode of Revenge.
Prince William was very heavily referenced in Harry's memoir Spec.
Charles did not cut Harry after the Oprah interview. He did not cut him after the book. He absorbed both and kept the door open. That is his defining paradox. The man who has spent 70 years learning when to hold and when to cut has a consistent instinct. Hold longer than the institution can afford. It has never once resolved itself on its own. He has waited anyway, every time. Australia did not change that instinct. It exhausted it. Harry did not call his father to discuss Sandringham. He floated the invitation publicly, through media, framed as casual, as if doing Charles a favour. The move had a specific target, an official invitation from the monarch, stepping onto royal property as a guest of the king, unlocks automatic entitlement to state-funded British taxpayer security. The one thing, per name sources, Harry wants more than reconciliation. Charles was shown exactly what the float was designed to extract. That is when the disgust inside the palace became something closer to resolve. Most commentators are asking whether Harry feels humiliated. The more interesting question, the one the palace is quietly answering, is which instruments are already being reviewed. The Sandringham ban tells you what Charles decided. What it does not tell you is who helped him decide, and what they are already preparing. Did Charles ban Harry from Sandringham because he finally chose the institution, or because Australia embarrassed him into it? Drop it in the comments. I'm reading everyone. This is a story about the moment a monarch decides that protecting a son and protecting the crown are no longer the same thing, and what the institution does when that moment arrives.
Harry lost access to taxpayer-funded police protection. According to reports, he has expressed concerns about bringing his family to the UK without adequate security. The Sunday Times notes that Harry believes an official invitation from the king could automatically trigger higher-level protection, making a Sandringham stay even more crucial.
Charles was shown the hospital outfit sale in real time, not briefed afterward, shown it while it was happening. The items worn inside a children's cancer ward, listed for purchase before the visit had cleared the news cycle. The reaction inside the palace, per named sources, was genuine disgust. Not surprise, disgust. Then the Australian polling arrived. Over 80% said they should not come back. Then the security figure, $410,000 Australian dollars of Australian taxpayer money for two private citizens who hold no official royal position, perform no official royal function, and, by their own repeated insistence, are no longer working members of the firm. Each number exceeded the last. Charles absorbed all three in the same week. The Australia trip explains the Sandringham ban. What it does not explain is the decision being prepared in parallel, the one that has nothing to do with a summer invitation. 4 days before Charles touched down in Washington, D.C., Harry stood in Kyiv and called on America to honor its international treaty obligations. A sitting US president publicly rebuked a member of the British royal family during a live diplomatic cycle, the first time that has ever happened. Charles had paused active cancer treatment to make that trip. Tom Sykes, one named reporter, not confirmed independently, analyzed the speech and placed it at 85 to 90% AI generated. Harry's team did not deny it. The pattern by this point is documented. The Oprah interview when Philip was in hospital, the book during the coronation period, the Kyiv speech 4 days before Washington, 3 of the most institutionally fragile moments in a decade, 3 major media events landing directly on top of them. The Ukraine speech tells you about Harry's judgment. What it cannot tell you is who inside the palace saw it in real time, and what they decided to do about it the same day. Did Harry give that Ukraine speech knowing exactly what it would do to his father's state visit? Or does he genuinely not see the connection? Comment now, because the answer changes everything about what comes next. Dan Wakeford edited People magazine during the Sussex years. His platforms ran the cover defending Meghan using her friends as named sources. He published the letter to her father. For years, he was the most powerful editorial ally they had. He spent 3 weeks reporting from inside their circle. That is not a hostile source. That is someone who was supposed to be on their side. What he found: the $100 million Netflix deal was never $100 million. The $20 million Spotify deal was not $20 million. The inheritance Diana left Harry is, according to sources inside their world, mostly gone. Legal fees across multiple litigations, $38 million. Industry insiders now say their names actively detract from projects rather than selling them. Dan Wakeford spent years making the strongest possible case for Harry and Meghan. His verdict after 3 weeks inside their world: wildly unhappy, with goals that have quietly diverged in ways that may be impossible to reconcile. When you see the financial picture and the institutional picture in the same frame, the question stops being whether Charles will act. The question becomes whether he does it before Harry forces his hand. Sources inside the palace have been pointing out for years that stress plays a measurable role in how a cancer patient responds to treatment. Harry has delivered stress on the most damaging timeline available, repeatedly, precisely, at the moments of greatest institutional fragility. Before I tell you what happened next, is Harry choosing not to understand this, or does he understand it perfectly? Comment now, because the answer determines whether what comes next is a tragedy or something colder.
The complexity is Harry's strained relationship with the Prince and Princess of Wales, who frequently spend time at Sandringham. Reports suggest that Harry's decision to visit could depend heavily on who else is present, highlighting just how deep the divisions run within the family. For now, the possibility of a summer reunion hangs in the balance. While Harry is said to be open to reconciliation, the final move lies with King Charles, and insiders suggest that unless trust is rebuilt behind closed doors,
He did not cancel the Washington visit. He paused cancer treatment to get on the plane. That is the measure of what being king costs him now, not in the abstract but in the specific, medical, irreversible sense. A man physically diminished, performing the role anyway, because the institution required it. That is real. It deserves to be named clearly before anything else. Charles has never had his mother's decisiveness. His consistent instinct, documented across 3 years of escalating provocation, has been to wait. The Oprah interview absorbed. The book absorbed. The Australia footage absorbed. He has repeatedly chosen the hope that the problem stops being a problem over the certainty that acting would end it. It never stopped. It accelerated, and the institution absorbed the cost of his hesitation alongside him. His grief is real. It is documented in every interview he has ever given. His mother died when he was 12 years old, in a tunnel in Paris, and nothing that came after that has ever been fully separate from that night. That explains some of what follows. It cannot explain all of it. The Oprah interview was broadcast while Philip was in hospital. The memoir landed during the coronation period. The Ukraine speech fired 4 days before his cancer-stricken father's most important diplomatic trip. The people around Charles use the word deliberate. The pattern is what gives them that word. He has been using his grief as a public instrument for years, and monetizing the access that grief generated. The palace no longer sees him as a wayward son. The characterization now, per named sources directly inside the institution, is hostile actor. Meghan is an investor in One-Off, an AI fashion platform that matches outfits worn by public figures to purchase links. The clothing worn inside the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne was uploaded to her personal page within 24 hours of the visit. She knew what she was doing. This is not a question of oversight or timing or management by others. As an investor with a direct financial interest in the platform's traffic, the connection between the visit and the listing is not incidental. It is the model. Touring a children's cancer ward and listing the outfit worn inside it for purchase in the same news cycle is the definition of the breach the institution had been watching accumulate. The palace did not need to characterize it. The sequence characterized itself. Dan Wakeford's sourcing comes from inside their world, people with their own reasons for what they are sharing. That is a real limitation, and it belongs on the record before his verdict does. What makes it credible is precisely that. These are not hostile palace sources. These are people who spent years on their side, and what they described to him after 3 weeks of reporting is a picture of collapse. The $100 million Netflix deal was never $100 million. The Spotify deal was not $20 million. Diana's inheritance is mostly gone. Legal fees at $38 million and climbing. US Weekly, the publication he repositioned as the pro-Sussex outlet, has announced 50% staff cuts and office closure. On the Ukraine speech timing, whether that was deliberate is something only Harry can answer. The pattern does not require the intent to be stated as fact. 3 events, 3 of the most fragile institutional moments in a decade. The pattern is the argument. On the bully characterization, Frolic's sources are inside the palace, which means they have a position on Harry. What makes it land is that the specific behaviour, going to media rather than calling his father, is not disputed by Harry's side. The characterization follows from the action. Harry has not denied it once, publicly. In November 2025, Charles signed a warrant, published in the London Gazette on November 6th. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was no longer entitled to hold the style, title, or attribute of Royal Highness. No parliamentary debate, no public consultation, a signature under the royal prerogative, and it was done. The 1917 letters patent specifies that the style and title are in the gift of the monarch. They can be altered at will. The Andrew precedent confirmed the mechanism works exactly as written. The only instrument that requires Parliament is the dukedom. Everything else, HRH, Prince, the royal website listing, sits inside the monarch's direct power. Here is what the documented picture actually shows. Charles has already tested the instrument he would need to use against Harry. He tested it on his brother. The Sandringham ban is not the decision. It is the announcement that the decision is now being considered by a king who knows exactly what it costs, and who has already proven he can execute it. Nobody put this on record. But the sequencing does not require anyone to. Here is what the Sandringham ban actually is. It is not a punishment. Punishments come from a position of certainty, from someone who has decided what the other person deserves. Charles has not decided that. 3 years of absorbing the Oprah interview, the book, the Ukraine speech, the Australia footage, and he still has not decided. What the ban reveals is something the palace has been carefully managing for years. A king who does not yet know which identity comes first. Whether he is a king who happens to be a father, or a father who happens to be a king. That distinction is not sentimental, it is institutional. Because the answer changes everything about what happens to Harry's title, his security classification, and his place on the royal website. Every instrument available to Charles requires him to answer that question before he can use it. He has not answered it, and the institution can no longer afford the gap. William has already answered it, not for himself, but for the monarchy he is inheriting. He has been answering it quietly for years. The Sandringham ban did not come from nowhere. It came from a palace that has been moving in one direction, while the man at the top has been standing still. That is the story the last 14 minutes have been building toward. Not a family falling out. A king running out of time to decide what he is. There is a human truth underneath all of this that has nothing to do with titles or letters patent or the royal website. When you have spent a lifetime building something that will outlast you, the hardest decision is cutting loose the person who threatens to bring it down, even when that person is your own child. That is not a royal problem. Every parent who has ever built something, a business, a family, a reputation, and watched someone they love begin to dismantle it, knows the specific weight of that moment. The moment when protecting the thing and protecting the person stop being the same action. Charles has been living inside that moment for 3 years. The institution has been waiting for him to come out the other side. The Sandringham ban is not him coming out the other side. It is him acknowledging, for the first time in public, that the moment exists. That is not nothing, but it is not the decision either. Before the final question, one thing you need to know for the next video. The specific instrument that would allow Charles to remove Harry's HRH without an Act of Parliament was already tested. November 2025. The warrant was signed, published in the London Gazette, and executed without a single parliamentary debate. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was no longer entitled to hold the style, title, or attribute of Royal Highness. Done in a signature. That mechanism was not built for Andrew. Andrew was the test. The person who architected the legal framework now sitting in front of Charles, who understood exactly which powers the monarch holds under royal prerogative and which require the long route through Parliament, is not Charles. Charles absorbed the advice. He did not write it. That is the next video. The instrument, the architect, and what Charles has already been shown about what it would cost Harry specifically, versus what it cost Andrew. Did Charles ban Harry from Sandringham because he finally chose the institution? Or because William forced his hand?